You remember the two of them from yesterday? So we decided to go on the Yarra wine tour together. So we're gonna go get, not drunk. We're not gonna get drunk. We're decent. We're gonna go get some drink. We're not drunk. There's a difference. We're only wine tasting.
It wasn't really good.
And he didn't make wine yet until he drank all the wine the brothers made dry. So he drank it all, decided that he needed more, and started making his own. His brother then joined him in 1860s to help him form the three great wineries, which is Yering, Yeringberg, and Hubert's Estate. So Yering is the oldest winery, and then Hubert's Estate is the second oldest winery. And we will pass that today, later today, and you'll see it. It's big. It's a really big hill. It looks like a rabbit hole, and it looks like they've spent a lot of money on the venue itself.
Two major definitions I will focus on. First is yes, cuvées are sparkling wines. The reason why is because when we actually press the juice for the grapes, which is pinot noir and chardonnay, we only press the grapes 75% of the way down, instead of like squeezing it for every single drop possible. The reason we do that is because we want the juice as clean and as clear as possible.
Very commercial as well. But that was pretty much the first era of winemaking in the Yarra Valley. And then it didn't last long though because of the Great Depression and increasing demand of wines, and two brothers couldn't keep up themselves, so they pretty much ripped up all the vineyards and vines and turned it back to pasture for cattle. So originally we were cattle farmers, and we just went back to that. It wasn't until 1960s where we came back and started making wine again, and 10 years later we made our first commercial wine, and that pretty much set the Yarra Valley as a serious wine region and paved the way for cool climate wines. I say cool climate wines because in Melbourne we do grow our grapes in a cooler climate compared to other states. So compared to the Ross Valley, SA, and Hunters, New South Wales, even in US they're a bit hotter than us. So it grows differently, and it changes a couple of things in a grape. So UV, how much sunlight a grape gets, is dependent on like how thin the grape skin is. So if there's less UV, the grape skin will be way thinner. And in Melbourne we're cold, so we don't get a lot of UV. Our grape skins are way thinner than other states as well in warmer climate. And that changes a couple of things. So it changes how much tannins go in a wine, and tannins, you know, determine how heavy a wine can get, and the color. And how sour and strong it can get as well. So usually the wines in the Yarra Valley are very lighter than cool climate wines, so they do taste different. And in the Yarra Valley here we do grow 60% Pinot Noir grapes. So Pinot Noir grapes only grow in cold climate, and as Melbourne gets hotter we'll have to change where we grow them. So all the wineries we visit today, you guys will be trying a Pinot Noir, and the second most we make is Chardonnay. So Chardonnay is the second most wine. A lot of people don't like Chardonnay, but it's just dependent. It tastes different here. We don't like, modern days don't really add in a lot of oak or that bold, strong taste to it, just because it's not very popular at all. Some people do like it, but in Australia we grow a bunch of other stuff in the Yarra Valley as well. So at the end of this road here is a berry farm. They grow walnuts and strawberries and berries and stuff like that, and it's pretty much picking season for strawberries, and cherries as well. From here guys, we're pretty much 10 minutes away. Once we get a bit closer I'll talk a little bit about the venue. Upstairs today guys, just make your way upstairs. Just head up guys.
Oh Lord, fans on. Okay. Oh, there you go. This looks pretty.
18 of us, eh? 2, 4, 6, 17, 12, 14, perfect. Wait on a couple more. So guys, welcome to Yering Station. Hey, my pleasure. Victoria's oldest winery. Almost 200 years of winemaking. So kind of wild. Two major definitions that we focus on. First is yes, cuvées are sparkling wines. The reason why is because when we actually press the juice for the grapes, which is pinot noir and chardonnay, we only press the grapes 75% of the way down, instead of like squeezing it for every single drop possible. The reason we do that is because we want the juice as clean and as clear as possible. So, inside this bottle, boom, it should be a very clean and beautiful kind of a wine, right? It's not. It has this beautiful rose gold color. Now the reason behind that is so cuvées, we do the method champenoise or champagne style method in all of our sparkling wines, which means literally everything happens inside the bottle. That goes through an entire fermentation process inside the bottle. We leave the yeast cells inside the bottle. So as those begin to expire, the wine reincorporates those flavors into itself, giving this beautiful kind of like cooked, nutty, kind of creamy sort of flavor. Now before we sell any of our wines, we have to filter all those yeast cells out. When we do, what we do is we turn the bottles upside down. We let all the sediments comes to the neck, we flash freeze the neck, and then pop off the caps. And like a shotgun blast, all the frozen sort of sediments, all the yeast pops out. But we lose quite a little bit of the wine. So we top it off with a dosage, is the technical term. And for our dosage, we use a little bit of pinot noir. So pinot noirs are very fruit forward here in the valley, as you guys are going to come to taste later on. So what we're essentially doing is mixing a very fruity sort of style of wine into a wine that's been cooking for 6 years. 6 years is how long we sort of age them in the bottle. And personally, I find it leaves these beautiful kind of appley, almost apple strudel style flavors. Go ahead, help yourselves behind me, don't be shy.
Thank you.
There we are.
Thank you.
Come on, yeah, right at the back there. There it is.
Oh, I think we're short.
So we did it.
Oh, we have the one extra.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, it does sound interesting. Quite fruity,
So there we are, our Brut Rosé. Brut just means dry. So it's not going to be sweet.
Could you recommend some sweet ones for me later?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Riesling.
Oh.
Riesling is a German sort of style varietal.
Yep.
The reason why it does very well here in Yarra Valley is because even though we're in Australia and it's like 35 degrees every day, this is technically considered a cooler climate region. Riesling is one of those grapes that does exceptionally well. Now what's fun here in the valley is there's a lot of wine farmers and not a lot of wine makers. So for this particular grape, we actually purchased it all from a local farm right around the corner from us here. So all the Riesling does come from Yarra Valley. What's fun about that is we can kind of express it in many different ways. So for this one, we decided to do an off-dry Riesling. Off-dry, again, is just one of those weird fancy wine terms that means sweet.
Oh,
If you
okay.
have a bit of a sweet tooth, this is the one for us right here. On the nose,
Off dry.
very tropical fruits. Pineapple stands out for me the most.
Oh, here, just pour it in here. I'll just have to take like maybe so very little. You know, I'm a lightweight, big time lightweight.
Maybe some stone fruits there as well. But because it's about 17.5 grams of sugar per bottle, it's going to be slightly thicker body, so a little bit more syrupy. This pairs incredibly well with spicy foods if you're a freak for them like I am. Thank you, Tyreek, the hot sauce boss.
Really love fruit chip.
Yeah.
You can always, you can tell.
This
Thank
super
you.
chilled on a hot day.
Okay, girls. Cheers.
Point. Why do we swirl a wine in the glass?
To volatilize the esters.
What?
I drew a blank.
I mean, maybe.
This is something I learned like 30 years ago in Napa Valley, but was
To
maybe-
volatile the asters?
No, volatilize the esters, but maybe it was red wine.
Oh,
Maybe
maybe.
it had nothing to do with whites. I don't know.
Guys, I'm stumped. I have no idea what either of those words means.
I should like
I'm stumped. I still don't know what that means. But that's what they kept saying. You have to volatilize the esters.
God, it sounds like something they'd say. One, we always have to remember wine is alive in the bottle. Once we seal it off with a cork or in Australia twist off caps, what ends up happening is we cut its oxygen supply. Wine wants to breathe, it wants to develop. There's enzymes, there's proteins, all kinds of stuff going on inside the bottle. That's why you hear that expression, let the wine breathe, when we open it. All that's going to do is as the oxygen starts getting into the wine, it's going to start to develop more nuanced flavors, the proteins and enzymes are going to react, it's going to really open up. So that's why we swirl it, to get a lot of air to the wine very quickly. The second reason, and what I find is way more important, is we always have to remember, smell is about 85 to 90% of taste. So it's really great to get a big inhale of the wine. So when I pour this one, before anybody takes a sip, I want you guys to take a smell of it. Then I will teach you the 2 proper ways to swirl. And the big secret key is, don't be afraid to spill.
In a restaurant?
Yeah, especially in a restaurant with white tablecloths.
Yeah.
So we will play that game. As I pour, I'll explain to you why I love Chardonnay in Australia. I think this is the greatest, so even though Shiraz is the kingpin of Australia, I think Chardonnay best represents modern Australian winemaking. The reason behind that is about 30 odd years ago, Australian wine was terrible. And they'll be the first country to admit it. It was whatever flavors the world wanted to drink, Australia would just mass produce it, triple the price and sell it to the Yanks. So that's what they did with Chardonnay. It was these big, buttery, oaky, vanilla bombs. They'd use a lot of wood chips and cut corners because it was just about money. Yeah. But over the last 15 or odd years, Australia is really starting to develop its own style, its own palate when it comes to wine. So Chardonnay best represents that in the sense of they're like, we don't want to be drinking these terrible big butter, like brioche creme brulee bombs in the middle of summer. We want something light, something refreshing, something very tart. And that's how Chardonnay has slowly started to evolve. So to really understand those nuanced flavors, there's 2 ways to swirl. First things first, we never want to grab the bulb of the glass. So we're going to take our first 2 fingers, we're going to place them on the base of the glass right here, and we're just going to start swirling it gently, all on the wrists. Exactly. Simple, simple, simple. If you're a little bit braver and don't mind spilling, we just hold it again, sort of middle of the stem, and we just give it a beautiful swirl. The higher the glass, the better it goes. It's more fun. Yeah, don't be afraid to spill. I got a lot of wine here, guys. We're practicing. Then, guys, stick your nose right in there and give it a big old waft.
Are you already drunk from it?
I smell a lot of wine all day long. And then, guys, give it a sip, and let's see what kind of flavors that we're testing here. Crisp, very clean. A little lemony, bunch of acidity as well, which is nice. So this, very refreshing style of wine. I compare them to like kind of very similar to Chablis if we're familiar with like French styles of wines, because it's so hot here. In summertime, this is what you want to be drinking. Something very refreshing, very tart. Chardonnays. Next, we're going to be hitting the reds. In particular, we're going to be starting with Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir is the king of the valley. It is the #1 planted grape in these hills. It is also the wine that really put this whole region in the eyes of the world. The reason behind that is very simple. There's something in wine called the diurnal shift. So all that means is during the days, it's very hot here. So the grapes have this incredible opportunity to dehydrate on the vines. We want that. We want wine grapes to struggle. That's how they produce the best berries, because they concentrate their efforts on the grapes. So as it slowly dehydrates, concentrates sugars, concentrates nectars, this promotes those fruity tones. fruity notes of a wine. During the nighttime, temperature drops. It gets quite wet. It gets quite cool. What ends up happening is those dehydrated grapes have an amazing opportunity to plump back up on the vine. That helps retain acidity. So Pinot Noir does incredible in climates that both balance acidity and fruitiness when it comes to the wine styles of making. Because this is a real SOB to grow. It's very temperamental. It's very prone to like diseases. It's very prone to splitting. Like if there's any gardeners in here, if you overwater your tomato plants, your tomatoes are going to grow super big and they're going to split on you. So if it's too much rain, we're screwed. That's what happened in 2018 where we lost 40-60% of our crop just because we got a lot of rain in 1 week. That's what growing Pinot Noir is all about. So every year we're very proud of our Pinot Noirs because it's that beautiful expression of grape. It's a lot of TLC in the vineyard. We really take a good, keep our eyes on it. In particular, why I love pouring this one is because 2021 was one of the greatest years in winemaking in the last 35 years or so. There's 4 vintages that stand out amongst them all. And that's going to be 2021, 2017, 2015, and 2013. Those years produced some of the greatest wines that this winery's ever made. And that goes for almost every winery in Australia. So later on today, when you're hitting different wineries, ask about those vintages.
Yeah.
Pretend you're pros. They're already going to be impressed at how well you guys swirl.
And volatilize the esters.
Because it volatilizes the asters. Oh my god.
Yeah,
Seriously.
I'm going to jump down a Google
what's your
wormhole.
Are you really?
Yeah, my back's a lot.
Like a little bit of this?
Yeah, same. I'm getting into them a bit more.
The one that I had in Portugal that I bought a lot of was
Yeah,
the-
it's just
like
luck of the draw, really. It was the weather, the harvest, the years. Like
Portugal is
typically
very
seasons or
style,
vintages
right?
will favor one
Some
over
of
the
them
other.
are, but-
Some vintages
Oh,
will
okay,
favor
yeah.
red. Some
but
vintages will
they
favor
do
white.
they have a
Those are the vintages that just
Yeah.
everything.
But is the Verde the
The weather is like 80.
that's a white?
It's white.
Yeah.
John, maybe I'm
It's called Verde because of the
Talk a
region.
little
The
bit about
region is the Verde Valley or something.
Sure.
But
So, great question. So soil here plays a huge part in grapes. Like I said, grapes love to struggle. Like you can literally take a grape stick, fucking bash it in between a rock, come back next year and it'll be growing. That's what the vines do. A lot of the soil that we have out here is like loam and clay. So clay does very well to Pinot Noir. Actually, this is crazy. I'm so happy you asked this question. All right, get ready, everybody. So clay is very wet, right? Because that's what makes it clay. It doesn't have a chance to evaporate or get rid of a lot of the moisture in the ground. So the grapes have a beautiful access to water, despite all year round if it's too hot or too humid or too dry. There's always going to be water in the clay soils. But secondly, what ends up happening with the clay is it retains a lot of heat. And that's very, very important in winemaking. Like, there's this one area, is it in Austria, thank you. And they planted on this hillside because there's a giant river that runs through it. And just the reflection of the sun on the river helps heat up the vines, which causes that dehydration. So like terroir, territory, vintages, mapping is everything when it comes to wine, soil included. So you have a lot of clay here and a lot of loam. Yeah. So it's a good source of nutrients for the soil, which is funny because Australia, a lot of it is just desert, barren wasteland. So Pinot Noir. And last but not least, guys, probably my favorite wine in the estate tasting. It's going to be third from the bottom, Shiraz Viognier. You guys, if you're at an Australian winery, you have to try Shiraz. There's so many different representations of it all across the valley and the country. Our particular winery here, why we sort of gravitate towards this Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, Shiraz, is because our climate mimics that of Rhone Valley in France, where some of the most famous Shiraz in the world once lived. Now it's all Australia, baby.
So did Shiraz start in Rome?
Yeah, started in Rhone Valley. Or started in France particularly, and then just really found its home here. So basically, Australia's done to Shiraz, what California's done with Cabernet, what Canada's done with ice wine, what Argentina's done with Malbec. It just found a place where it excels. So if you go to, let's say, Barossa Valley or Hunter Valley, you're going to be getting big, bold, heavy, peppery expressions of Shiraz. It's a hotter climate. Hotter, as we said, concentrates the fruit, the sugars. Much more fruitiness. But more sugar and yeast makes more alcohol. So heavier wines. So it stands up well with kind of the oaky pepperiness of the French oak that they use. So they'll go, 30 months and 30% French oak. No problem. Here, we're more classic French styles. So we really, really, really want like the grape on the vine to dictate how it's going to turn into wine. So much more emphasis and focus on the fruits rather than the wine making, as I like to call it. So Shiraz Viognier, this is actually a co-fermentation between a red wine and a white wine. As a white wine is the Viognier. Now the difference between a co-fermentation and a blend is essentially this. If you're cooking a stir fry at home, right? You fry your chicken, you fry your vegetables, and then right at the end of the meal, or right at the end of the cooking, you throw in a huge pinch of salt. That would be like blending salt in with your meal. It's two separate things and you bring them together to create one. Some bites will be saltier, some bites won't be as seasoned, but it still tastes delicious. No problem cooking and eating that way. A co-fermentation, however, would be as you're sauteing the chicken, throw some salt and pepper in there. As you introduce the vegetables, throw a little bit of salt in there. So it just has a better chance at the end result to taste way more balanced. So you might not be as salty, but it'll be like more elevated flavors. That's the difference between co-fermentation and blending. Viognier is a very oily style of grape. I mean like olive oil, not like greasy. So it has this incredible ability to kind of coat the palate, coat the mouth. So as you're drinking this Shiraz, it's going to be not what we can just sell. Thirdly, or fourthly, the Pinot Noir. This is the king of the hill. The #1 planted grape. This is what put Yarra Valley on the map. And of course, the kingpin of all reds in Australia, the Shiraz, done in the French expression of Yering station. Guys, I say this, wine is something you enjoy 3 times. Every bottle of wine, 3 times you get to enjoy it. The first is when you buy it in the store. When you're sitting there Googling Vivino, trying to figure out what bottle. The second, of course, is when you open the bottle and you're sharing it with friends or family over a nice dinner, maybe just by yourself on a beautiful Tuesday afternoon you got off work. And then thirdly is the memory that it creates in the first time, or the rest of your time when you think back on that moment. We just shared a bottle of wine today. Hopefully in the future when you guys do buy and open it, you'll be thinking of this and what a wonderful experience we all had today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So guys, we are in Yering, and this is the restaurant. It's the restaurant terrace of Yering. It is absolutely gorgeous. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit so you can see that. It's a beautiful view. We've had a couple of wines. I have to get better at setting up the camera. I think I'm gonna go into the restaurant and look at what they have. I might get some water. Wow. This gives you a feel of where the wine is being made. I think I'm generally going to drop a few things. It's very hot. Let me show you. Look into here. And nice painting here.
Okay, hello ladies. So we made it and I see you bought something. What did you buy?
We bought rosé.
Rosé
Good
brut.
rosé,
So
yeah.
why did you buy it?
For my wedding.
The wedding of your cousin. It's a wedding gift. Guys, did you hear that? But you bought it because you like the color, right? Was it? The color?
Kawaii.
Oh, it's so kawaii.
Yeah.
Arigatou gozaimasu.
So guys, we are at Yering, and this is the first winery we stopped at for the wine tour. We had 5 different wines, and the Rosé Brut was really good. They also had a Riesling. So what I understand is the main bestseller is the Pinot Noir, and especially from 2017, 2021 and 2 other years. Don't ask me, they have vintages from there. And then there is also the Shiraz. I did not know that Shiraz came from the Rhone Valley in France, but apparently it used to be from France, because I know Shiraz personally as an Australian wine, but it came originally from France. So that I learned today. So
let's go check out the rest of the winery.
Okay, so you bought the Riesling and
the other one.
ooh, the Chardonnay. Okay, yeah, it's the Chardonnay, right? Okay, so he bought 2. He's going for it. Okay.
Stop one. We are done. Headed to the next one. And I'm going to get you a bit of footage whilst we're leaving the winery and getting to the next one. So let's see. Yeah, exactly.
Alrighty, guys, how was the first stop? Yeah, cool. Are we loosey-goosey now? Yeah, loosey-goosey. Alright, our next stop is about 15 minutes away, guys. It's Soma. So we are having our lunch there. So we'll go through the tasting first. So 30 to 40 minutes for the tasting. And then we'll sit down for our lunch. Our 2-course meal, just remember we do get a glass of wine with your lunch. So just remember what you like throughout the tasting. Otherwise, once we get a bit closer, I'll talk a little bit about Soma.